Hey there, this is your host, Lisa Roberts, and this is the Healthy Business, Healthy Profit Show. You're not alone. Being an entrepreneur is one of the toughest and loneliest jobs there is. Whether it's managing your operations, getting control of your finances, or tackling those organizational challenges that we all know come up, sometimes it's hard to figure out which way to go. Let's face it, it's hard to know all there is to know about running a business, especially if your business is growing. I'm here to bring you tips, information, and strategies that can ease those growing pains and help you build a healthy, profitable business. I hope in the next 30 or so minutes that you get some great information that you can use to help you run, lead, and grow your healthy business. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healthy Business, Healthy Profit Show. I'm your host, Lisa Roberts, and today I'm very happy to be talking with Todd Palmer, an entrepreneur who turned near business failure into award-winning success. We'll talk about some of the things that stop most entrepreneurs from realizing true success in their business. Welcome, Todd Palmer.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me today. It's great to be here.
Oh, glad to have you, Todd. Todd's an entrepreneur of a staffing company and is also a business advisor. He has kindly consented to this interview today to share his extensive knowledge and experience to help us avoid the mistakes that many entrepreneurs make and also find out how you can learn from your failure to realize true business success. Todd, thanks again. Are you ready to get started?
Let's get going.
All right, great. So, Todd, my first set of questions is going to be about your background and your experience. So that'll give the listeners in our audience an idea about who you are, where you're coming from, and how you really can relate to them and the struggles that they're facing in their business. And then we'll just jump into that amazing story of yours about your company, how you went from near bankruptcy to the Inc. 5000 list. That way our audience can understand how to avoid some of the troubles that can stop many entrepreneurs from realizing success. So,
absolutely. Let's do anything we can to help them avoid the pain.
Absolutely. So could you tell us a little bit at first here about your background and your education and your experience in business in the early part of your career?
I'd be happy to. So I think when I think of the early part of my career, I think of something that doesn't necessarily directly impact my day-to-day work life, but more of my day-to-day overall life. I became a single father at the age of 22.
Oh, wow.
I raised my son by myself. And that really, that was obviously a life-changing crossroads for me. And because of that decision, because of that great opportunity to raise my son, I left the career I had and I went into starting my own business. So a lot of people, probably in your audience, starting a business to create, manifest the life they want.
Right.
And for me, it was very similar to that. I wanted to live life by design as best I could in my early 20s. And part of that was the freedom and flexibility of being an entrepreneur that would allow me to work hard, but also enjoy the ability to raise a child. And that was key and pivotal in my early development. So I got custody at the age of 22, and I started my company at the age of 27.
Wow. Amazing. That's amazing. So is that when you started Diversified Industrial Staffing? Was that back in 97? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started Diversified Staffing in 1997, October 1st, and it was really designed as a general all-purpose staffing firm. Kind of in the Walmart big box thought process versus the very niche focus we've evolved into. And it was a really interesting time in the country because if you remember back in 1997, the country was running at an unemployment rate of approximately 3%, essentially meaning we're at full employment.
Right.
We were fortunate enough to pick the right time to start a company, and we became profitable on the 72nd day of business.
Beautiful.
And so it was amazing because I was those crazy entrepreneurs that my business plan said I required $150,000 in startup cash, and I started it for $15,000.
Right.
And was fortunate enough to make some of the right decisions and to have a tremendous amount of luck, frankly, that propelled it to exist at that point. So we started the company as a general all-purpose staffing firm, and then have evolved it really into a niche provider in the skilled trades and skilled sector within manufacturing.
Oh, okay. And that's a sector that's very interesting now. With manufacturing seems to be becoming much more advanced now.
It's changed a ton, and we're in our 23rd year of business. And I remember the days when you'd walk into a facility and it was it was like this the scene from like one of the end of the Terminator movies where there's just fire and the floor is dirty. There's stuff everywhere. Now we've got manufacturers that are cleaner than, because they do like aerospace or medical device.
Sure.
These places are phenomenally clean, very well managed, very air conditioning. Where they places 23 years ago, there wasn't even a box fan. So the world of manufacturing has changed quite a bit, and that's really an important thing, I think, for your audience to recognize, especially if anybody has any younger people who may not be ready for a college education or just college, maybe not college material for whatever reason.
Right.
The skilled trade sector, whether it's plumbing, HVAC, whether it's CNC, whether it's welding, they're an aging demographic. Those are your baby boomers.
Absolutely. You read stories about this all the time.
So it's a great place for younger people to consider getting into. The average American plumber is making 120 to 150 grand a year without much debt. Not necessarily a bad way to take a look at a career.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So at some point, you're running to Diversified, your entrepreneurial bug starts eating away a little bit, and you think about the next big thing. What happened to the staffing company when you took your eyes off of it for a little bit?
Well, and I did. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs. We're the kids who like to watch the bright and shiny things. We chase the unicorns and the rainbows, and so it really was a really interesting evolution for me, not only as a business owner but as a human being. Mm-hmm. So I opened a couple of other small businesses that took my attention, and I put someone else in charge of Diversified in early 1994. And early 2004, my apologies. And what happened was the economy was starting to tip towards a recession and nobody knew it. Yeah. The staffing space typically will know of a recession anywhere from 12 to 24 months before the rest of the country because contingent workforce hiring dries up. Right. Job openings are no longer appearing, but it's not. It's a slow roll. It's nothing that immediately happens overnight like a stock market crash.
Right.
Well, we weren't watching the correct data points. I put someone else in charge who had 10 more years of experience in the staffing space than I had, and I trusted him.
Right.
But I made the mistakes of not monitoring and measuring him. Right. So fast forward to September of 2006, the company, was $600,000 in debt, which money I had personally guaranteed. We were 60 days away from running out of cash. We had a toxic and dysfunctional culture that was professionally and personally embarrassing to me as the owner. And I had gotten such a strong I was so embedded in imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Meaning I thought I had to have all the answers, and I didn't. I didn't know what to do. I kept running into the same tree as compared to looking at the forest. Yeah. And it really became devastating. So in early September, I decided that in order to change the company, I needed to change myself. So the first thing I did is I reached out for help, and I got a business coach. Wow. First business I ever worked with. And he took a look at our numbers, and he took a look at the things we were doing, and he said, why did you make this decision? Why did you make that decision? I said, well, I didn't really want to do that, but I was talked into it by my staff, which I have to own. Yeah. He's like, yeah, your idea was a better idea. Right. He'd been staffing for 25 years. Yeah. And we reached a point where, in order to turn around the company, we had to make some tough choices. And so September 9th, 2006, I walked in and fired my entire company, and I started over.
Now, firing your entire staff in one day, that had to take a ton of guts. What led you to that? What did you learn about the staff, and what you learned that, where did I go wrong here?
We could do a whole podcast on where I went wrong. That could be like our segment 2. I made a lot of unfortunate decisions. I think because we had such an early rise of success, I thought I had all the answers. I was the smartest kid in the room. Right. And the reality was there were so many other economic factors that I just didn't know about. Yeah. But the biggest reason I had to make the change of the staff was because of the toxic culture. I had the mentality that I was only going to hire experienced level people. Okay. And when you hire experienced level people, you certainly get their experience, but you also get their bad habits.
Right.
And I realized that their bad habits were things I could not unteach. They were things that weren't going to change, and that became permeated throughout the entire culture. Yeah. If your culture is toxic, you're essentially the host is dying from within inside. Yeah. And it really became down to the fact of I had lost trust in them. It's basic emotions. I don't trust what you're telling me. I don't trust what you say you're doing, and I needed to make a change. And it really came down to, we were going to run out of cash anyways.
Yeah.
So the quickest way to right the ship is to shuttle as many of your expenses as possible.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing was, I never told any of my clients that we had a staff change.
Wow. That's amazing.
So clients were looking for Bob or Sue, and they're at lunch or they're at a client, and I would, you're back on the phones. Yeah, I'm more invested in the company now. And it helped to fix the cash position. It helped to fix the P. And it really allowed me to do something that's been really instrumental for our business, is to hire now for DNA, not for resume.
Right.
How we hire and how we do things. And that was one of the first big steps in turning around the culture.
Yeah. It's funny you say that about they were used to the good times. And, it's funny. I've seen that myself in a job that I had. And also I saw it in a client that I had where, it was like everything was go for so long and everything was going great. But then when it goes down, you really do have to adjust your mindset. And if you do have a bad attitude and a toxic culture, right, it could be, shocking to the system, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's interesting. Yeah. I've done 2 keynote speeches this week for my new venture, Extraordinary Advisors. And the speech I give is called Failing Forward into Success. And it talks about how so many people have to reframe their mindset when things aren't going well.
Right.
And I had the same thing. I just hadn't heard of having to do those things. And I tell this one story about Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Mm-hmm. He had to reframe his entire life at the age of 65.
Yeah.
Almost an entire year. He drove around the country selling his chicken recipe. He met with literally 1,009 restaurants and was told no.
Oh, wow.
He didn't get his first yes until time 1,010. That's
amazing.
Persistence.
Yeah.
But you have to reframe it. And it's just, so the point is, we all have it within us. If we're aware, one, that we're not alone. That's why I had a coach tell you, hey, listen, you're not alone. We're going to see this thing through. Yeah. And 2, you're not that. Your parents are going to tell you you're special, but my friend, you're not that special. Right. A lot of us make the same mistakes.
Yeah, sure. Now, speaking of mistakes, you mentioned a few things. I read an article that you had written years ago that you had mentioned that you weren't doing certain things in your business, like things like not reviewing your business results, not looking at key performance indicators. Can you talk about that a little bit and explain how, to the entrepreneurs listening, how getting your arms around that really helped your business going forward?
Oh, I'd be happy to. So for me, it was, I was really wrapped up in a thing called artificial harmony. And the artificial harmony for me was, I didn't want to come in and question an employee because I would hurt their feelings. Mind you, I was in my early 30s during this time frame, so it was important for me to be liked and important for me to be popular with my staff, and I wanted to be like the big entrepreneurs you read about in all the publications, and the staff supposedly loves them all, and until the tell-all book comes out 10 years later about really how they all hate jobs or whomever.
Right.
And so I was kind of wrapped up in that mythos of that. And so I didn't want to upset staff. I wasn't willing to admit that I didn't have as much financial literacy as I needed to be a CEO. And I wasn't willing to admit that I needed to get some assistance on that. So when I got my business coach, he has a degree in economics and finance, and he was like, he taught me what I needed to know.
Right.
So what I've learned now, if I want to get into a new area, I'm getting into public speaking. I'm getting into business coaching. I've gotten some great mentors to teach me. I don't have to have all the answers. The world is a very generous place, and people are happy to share their knowledge with you if you just do the simplest thing, like ask them.
Right.
So I didn't want to upset the staff. I didn't want to hold them too accountable. At one point, we're making great money, so it wasn't necessarily an issue. And I didn't always know the correct questions to ask. And so I've really learned, one of the techniques I teach my clients is, if you're sitting in with your leadership team as the CEO of the company, practice speaking last. Hear all the other great ideas around the table. Yeah. They might be better than yours. They might be worse than yours. But get feedback from the team, because the collective mindset of 5 executives is much more powerful than the one mindset of the CEO. You always have a trump card. You can always make a different decision. But if someone has a great idea, you can say, hey, as compared to like, ooh, my idea was awful. It's compared to saying, I really like Bob's idea. Let's just go with that.
Right.
It's just a better way to do it. And I think nowadays, especially with the millennials, they really like group participation activities, feeling like they're part of a team or a community. So as we transition away from the boomers and more into the millennials in leadership positions, I see this trend really being at the forefront for several years.
Yeah, and certainly, what you just described with everybody giving their ideas, I mean, certainly that helps any business because you got different points of view trying to solve this, a single problem, let's say, and somebody comes at it different ways, right?
Oh, exactly. There's just so much more. It's so funny. I was at MIT last week with a group of 80 CEOs. We've been getting together now for 15 years, and one of the guys in our group has taken basically that mentality and he's applied it to his family and how to sit around the dinner table and do different things and how to get your young kids involved. Whether he's got 4 boys. His youngest is 5, his oldest is 15. Yeah. And they all get an equal say. And obviously the 15-year-old is going to have probably a little bit of a different articulation.
Right.
But it's become part of their family culture, no different than your business culture. Right. And that everybody gets a contribution and everybody has to carry a certain amount of responsibility and accountability to the family as well as in a business. So I think these principles can really be applied universally across a lot of different sectors.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So you also, on this show, we talk a lot about the importance of having good business practices and processes in place. And I think that was an area that you mentioned as well. It seemed like, from what I read, that having business processes really helped improve your overall performance. So if you could, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, one of my biggest mentors has been a gentleman by the name of Vern Harnish. He wrote a book, I think it's coming up on about 20 years ago, called The Rockefeller Habits. Mm-hmm. And I've had the good fortune to work with him individually and get to know him, as well as take a couple of programs with him. And for me, it was really figuring out what are the key pillars to your business? What are the key pillars to any business, mine or someone else's? And it really comes down to cash, strategy, execution, and your staff. Mm-hmm. Now, Vern uses the word people. I use the word staff because for me, I really think the overall umbrella to those 4 pillars is people. People make all of the decisions on cash, strategy, execution, and who stays and goes on the team. Right. And I had to figure out what the key performance indicators were for each of those categories, each of those departments in my business. And what drives me to the one critical number? What's the one thing that if it's hit every week, my business is doing great. Right. And if it's not every week, then what do we talk about? Right. So for us, it was really, being in the staffing space is not like being, say, in manufacturing where you produce enough of your product and you can forecast based on contracts. Our business it's the craziest business I can find in the world, where if we do a really good job, we place a really good employee at a company and the company doesn't have any more openings, we've essentially cut off our supply and we're no longer needed. So we essentially put ourselves out of work. It's the most craziest. It's just crazy. Then the flip side of it is we can forecast, hey, we've got X number of people going to work this week. We'll have them just stop showing up. And when the country's at full employment, that happens a lot. Right. We had between January and March, we had 12 direct hires cancel on us. Wow. That costs our company 6 figures. Yeah. That's painful. I can't go to my staff because they're feeling defeated. That's money out of the company pocket, but also money out of the recruiter's pocket. Right. How do you manage through that? Right. So that really told us that because we had 12 cancellations, what was going on in the marketplace, and people who were getting raises and people were getting all these different things. But we watched the data points. Yeah. Of how many new starts we had. That's a data point. What are our billable hours? That's a data point. What's our revenue? That's a data point. Right. What's our profitability? That's a data point. What's our profit per employee place? A secondary data point. And all those have to count. It's like the gauges on an airplane instrumentation. Yeah. We're going to hit a mountain if any of those are off. How do we watch that? Yeah. So then we're able to dig into some different things. When it comes to the accounting piece, we have to take a look at what are our days outstanding. What are all those simple things, and then we have to come up with scripting as compared to we just don't have enough money in the bank. Well, that's pretty apparent. How do we get the money into the bank? Right. And we really try to, as much as we possibly can, and I try to teach this to my clients at Extraordinary Advisors, how do you manage a process without having to manage a personality, without having to manage a person? Yep. And then how do you create a culture through your interview in your recruiting efforts to bring the right people in that are going to fit your culture, that fit those data points, so you're having more collaborative conversations compared to the he said, she said conversations. Right.
Perfect. It's funny. I just did a podcast episode the other day. I said the process helps enhance the people, I think,
Absolutely. Well, not only that, I couldn't agree with you more. In addition to that, the process creates freedom. Everybody knows what the process is. Everybody's going to follow the process. That's why McDonald's can have 15-year-olds making hamburgers, because the process is pretty foolproof if it's just followed.
Right. Exactly. Perfect. So today, I want to say to you, Todd, you've bravely accepted the failure that you had early on and really turned this into tremendous success. And you were a 6-time Inc. 5000 list winner for the fastest growing companies. It's obvious. It's obvious that you turned it right around. What tips do you have for entrepreneurs that may be facing some of their own struggles right now?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are struggling. That I talk to them on a pretty frequent basis, and I think the first thing is to recognize that an entrepreneur alone is an entrepreneur at risk. What I mean by that specifically is, like, I'm part of a group called EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. I'm in the Detroit chapter, but I've done things with them on a global level, and the commonality amongst the group is, we all didn't know what we didn't know until we got in a room with other smart people, other smart entrepreneurs. Right. And the other thing is, if things are going great, all right, that's perfect. Well, the path to success is not a direct line from point A to point B, as you know.
Not at all.
Not at all. And so when you're in those tough spots, if a company can't make payroll, for example, well, the last thing the owner really wants to do is go to his staff saying, hey, nobody's getting paid this week.
Right.
Not so good.
Right.
Not something we want to have.
Right.
But you can go to your people in an EO group or have a business coach, have a mentor. Well, here's some different ways you can attack that cash problem. And here's how there's so much collective good in the world. So the first thing I'd say is, an entrepreneur alone is someone at risk. Secondarily, I don't think anybody that I know, whether it's, I know a lot of professional athletes over the course of time, and they all have great coaches. I've had Vern, he's a great coach. I've had the gentleman who helped in 2006 coach me and help me pull out of a nosedive. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Second thing I'd suggest to anybody who's feeling like they're struggling, they've hit a glass ceiling, is figure out why you do what you do. One of my favorite authors is a guy named Simon Sinek, The Power of Why. And he takes you through a diagnostic to figure out why you're in business. What are you doing? And for my business, it took me 2 years to figure this out. I want to improve lives in everything I do. Right. And I'm not doing it for the money, or I'm not doing it for the Inc. 5000. I'm doing it because I want to improve lives. And, the 6,000 people we've helped get jobs at Diversified Industrial Staffing, we believe we've helped them improve lives. Right. Improve the lives of our customers. They don't have to maybe work as many hours of overtime. So if we take care of the customer and we take care of the employee, we'll be taken care of as the recruiter. It's just a more holistic way to look at things. And I think lastly, I would say to people is, know your financials. Know how you make money. Right. Know how you lose money. Right. And if you figure it out. Again, hire it. And, CPAs are great. My son's an accountant. They have a lot of value. Right. But one of the things I even told him, I said, Tyler, if you want to be a differentiator in the accounting space, tell me what's coming in the windshield, not what's in my rearview mirror. Right. Help me figure out where I'm going, not where I've been. Right. If I had potholes that I hit in the past, tell me how I hit those and how can I avoid those in the future. But help me figure out what's a good future look like. Because I've often found, like with trusted advisors, CPAs, accountants, etc., lawyers, they are only as good as the questions that the entrepreneur asks.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other things you want to share on that line?
I think, lastly, especially because the biggest thing I hear through all whether it's our recruiting clients or my coaching clients, is the biggest challenge now and for the next decade is going to be the battle for talent. So why are you a cool place to work? Right. Why should somebody want to work for you? Right. A good employee is going to have options. This is really simply the fact is the country's at full employment. We have the lowest labor participation rate in 45 years. Yeah. There are people probably listening to a podcast are not able to recognize the fact that in their lifetime, this is the lowest participation rate ever. Right. And then throw in the millennial unemployment rate, which is nearly 13%. Oh, so your baby boomers are leaving, people aren't working, and the next influx isn't entering into the workforce yet for whatever reasons. Yeah. The battle for talent is right now, and it's not going to change. Yeah. So how do you make yourself a great place to work? What is your culture? What's going to attract people to you? Is it the interest work you do? Is it the culture in which you created? And it doesn't have to be all about the foosball tables and the way you run your company. Tony Hsieh at Zappos has done an excellent job. One of his book, Delivering Happiness, is one of my favorites. And he talks about, hey, we created a great culture, which allows us to actually pay people less and have a waiting list of people who want to work here. Yeah. That's like the optimal human capital goal.
Yeah, a lot of people use the foosball table and all that, but a lot of times I hear people say, I'm like, why don't you leave that company? I like who I work with. You hear that a lot. So that's a culture that's talking to you, right?
Well, and that's a great point too. If you flip the lid on that a little bit, as a recruiter, the number one way we're able to take somebody from company A to company B is because they hate their boss.
Yeah.
They hate where they work. They like the work they do, or it's convenient to home, but my boss is difficult, or he or she is this or that. Right. So as a recruiter, if I can figure that out, that's what we needle. That's what we draw out. And then we have to go to our customers and say, what makes you great, cool, and unique, and why should somebody want to talk to you? And then we figure out how to bridge you're creating a relationship as a recruiter. You're essentially a matchmaker. Right. How do you create a relationship so everybody wins?
Right, exactly. So your staffing company's on a good path, right? I mean, although you might see some headwinds ahead, but you're also using your experience in your new business venture, and you've mentioned that. You've alluded to us. So you're working now as a business advisor. I think you mentioned the name. Extraordinary.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that, how you go about working with clients.
Well, for us at Extraordinary Advisors, it's really important to figure out where we can and cannot add value. Yeah. A coaching relationship is a very interpersonal relationship, and every coach isn't for every customer, and it's an acquired taste in my experience. What may work great for you may not work great for me, kind of thing. So what we do with our Extraordinary Advisor clients is we help them figure out what do they need, where do they need help with. Most of our experiences really ended up with they need to take a look at what's holding them back, right. where are they struggling, and if they're doing great, why aren't they doing better? Right. And it comes down to figuring those things out. So if someone, going back to your question earlier, like if someone's such in pain as an entrepreneur, well, it's kind of going to the doctor, right? A lot of people don't go to the doctor until the last minute.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur who has a little self-awareness, you may want to reach out to a coach or an advisor sooner. Yeah. And we help to figure out in the areas of cash strategy, people, and execution what their problems are. From just kind of my tip is it typically comes down to people.
Yeah.
And it's making the decisions in all those key areas, and why are they making the decisions? I'll often walk into a room. I recently did this. I had a CEO with a leadership team of 10 people. Mm-hmm. And I prepped him ahead of time that, we're going to go in, you're committed to change, you're committed to evolving, recognize that change is difficult for people. Yeah. And people have a hard time failing forward into success. They struggle with it. Change is just, it's against their human nature a lot of times. Recognize that of your leadership team, half of them could be gone within 2 years because they don't like the changes.
Yeah.
Are you willing to risk that to get to your dream? Now, he was, and we were able to get people on the same page, but it required a lot of difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. It required getting into those uncomfortable moments. And that's really where I played a huge role in helping them figure out as a company, here's where we want to go, and here are our bottlenecks. And if you look at a lot of bottles, the bottleneck is typically at the top.
Right.
And how do we have those breakthroughs? And that's really, someone was asking me today, why do I enjoy the coaching and speaking so much? It's really those light bulb moments when someone gets it, or there's a breakthrough, or there's a human connection in the room, or human connection with the audience. I'm addicted. I love it. It's so enjoyable. It's like for people who watch their children walk for the first time. I remember watching my son walk for the first time. Like, it was just amazing. And then he fell flat on his face, and he had to get back up and fail forward into that.
Exactly. So if listeners want to get in touch with you and learn more about you, how can they do that?
Thank you very much for asking. There's a couple of ways to do it. Actually, for the listeners of your podcast today, I'd like to offer a free 30-minute telephone coaching diagnostic to see where they stand. No obligation, just to help them kind of reframe where they're maybe struggling. Right. And they can set that up through Kelly. She's my assistant, and she can be reached at booking@extraordinaryadvisors.com. Okay. Or if you need to reach me, just have a question for me, and you don't think you're necessarily ready for the coaching conversation, you can reach me at Todd@extraordinaryadvisors.com. Mm-hmm. And I always respond to people within 24 hours, because I know that if people are taking the courage, it's a step of courage to ask for help, right, then I'll make sure I honor and respect that with a timely response.
Okay, great. And your website is extraordinaryadvisors.com?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Todd Palmer, for a wonderful interview. I'm sure that everybody in the audience really did get a lot from you and learn from you, and how you really accepted failure to find success. So thanks so much for sharing all your wisdom and experience with us today. Appreciate it.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
All right, great. I'm Lisa Roberts, and thank you for joining us on the Healthy Business, Healthy Profit Show. I'd like to invite you to check out Todd's website at extraordinaryadvisors.com to learn more about him and the services he provides to CEOs and business owners. We'll make sure that we have a link in the show notes for you to easily check Todd's site out. So thanks a lot for joining us, and until next time, here's to your company's good health. This has been Lisa Roberts with the Healthy Business, Healthy Profit Show, the show where you get tips and strategies to help you lead, run, and grow a healthy business. If you like what you've heard here on Healthy Business, Healthy Profits, please be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like today's episode, please leave us a review and be sure to share the show with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to visit the show's website at healthybusinesshealthyprofits.com to get all the show notes and other tips and information that I share there. So thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.